a city destined to rule the world, born from blood, betrayal, and a prophecy whispered by the gods themselves. Twin brothers, nursed by a wild she-wolf, their rivalry sparking the birth of an empire that would shape history. But here's the question that still haunts us. Was Rome truly founded by a wolf-raised orphan, or was this story crafted to justify power? For centuries, we've been told the legend of Romulus and Remus, abandoned as infants, saved by a miracle, only to turn on each other in a fight for destiny. But how much of this epic tale is history, and how much is myth? Today, we're peeling back the layers of time to uncover the truth behind the empire that conquered continents. Picture this: the rolling hills of central Italy, more than 2,700 years ago. A small settlement on the Palatine Hill, surrounded by marshes and rival tribes. No marble temples, no Colosseum, just a handful of huts and a people hungry for greatness. Was this the humble beginning of Rome, or was there something darker? Here's a twist. Even the ancient Romans weren't sure. The legend of Romulus was already centuries old by the time Cicero and Augustus used it to unite a fractured republic. Coins minted with the she-wolf, temples built to honor the twins. Was this history or the greatest propaganda campaign of antiquity? Want to know how this ancient origin story altered the course of civilization? Stick around, because by the end of this journey, you'll never look at Rome the same way. And hey, if you love untangling history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for Imperium Chronicles. Every click helps us resurrect more stories from the dust of time. Long before Rome was an empire, before its legions marched across the world, there was a prophecy. A king, a usurper, and 2 infants cast into the river Tiber, left to drown in the currents of fate. King Numitor of Alba Longa, a descendant of the Trojan hero Aeneas, ruled peacefully until his brother Amulius seized the throne. But here's where destiny twists. Numitor's daughter, Rhea Silvia, was forced to become a Vestal virgin, sworn to celibacy. That should have ended the bloodline, but the gods had other plans. Mars, the god of war himself, visited Rhea Silvia in secret. And from that forbidden union, twin boys were born, Romulus and Remus. Amulius, terrified of the prophecy that these boys would overthrow him, ordered them thrown into the Tiber. But fate doesn't drown so easily. The river carried the twins to the banks of the Palatine Hill, where legend says a she-wolf, the Lupa, found them. She nursed them, raised them as her own, a wild beast showing mercy to human children. But was it really a wolf? Some ancient historians whispered another version, that the she-wolf was actually a shepherd's wife, because in Latin slang, lupa could also mean, well, a woman of ill repute. A bawdy joke hidden in Rome's sacred origin story? Maybe, but the wolf became the symbol anyway. Ferocious, protective, untamed, just like Rome itself. Raised by shepherds, the twins grew into warriors. And when they learned their true heritage, they returned to Alba Longa, killed Amulius, and restored their grandfather Numitor to the throne. But here's where the story turns dark. The brothers decided to found a new city, but where? Romulus stood on the Palatine Hill. Remus chose the Aventine. They waited for a sign from the gods. Remus saw 6 vultures first, but Romulus saw 12. A divine blessing or an excuse for ambition? Romulus began building his walls. Remus, mocking him, jumped over them. A deadly insult. And in that moment, history changed with a single blow. Romulus struck his brother down. The first blood spilled in Rome was brother killing brother. Was it destiny or raw, brutal ambition? Rome would forever be a city built on power and sacrifice. And from that day forward, it bore the name of its founder, Romulus, the man who killed his twin to rule alone. But here's the real question. Did it happen like this at all? Or was the murder of Remus just a story told to justify Rome's ruthless rise? Stick around, because next, we dig into the dirt and ruins to find out what really happened. So we have this incredible legend. Abandoned twins, a she-wolf, brother killing brother. But here's where things get really interesting. What if I told you archaeologists have actually found clues? Dig beneath the luxurious palaces of imperial Rome, and you'll find something surprising: charred post holes and clay fragments dating back to the 8th century before Christ. Simple huts, exactly where legend says Romulus first built his settlement. The timing matches perfectly, but here's the catch. These weren't the homes of demigods, just ordinary shepherds and farmers. So did Romans later upgrade their origin story? Maybe. Every great civilization wants heroic beginnings. Then there's Rome's first population crisis. The legend goes, Romulus needed wives for his men, so he invited the neighboring Sabines to a festival, then kidnapped their women, the famous rape of the Sabines. But wait. Ancient historians like Livy admit, the women eventually chose to stay. Some even intervened to stop the fighting between their fathers and new husbands. So was this kidnapping? Or political theater? A forced alliance that became a marriage of convenience? Think about it. Rome's earliest survival tactic wasn't just swords, it was assimilation. The Sabines became Romans. Their gods merged. Their children inherited both legacies. Maybe the rape was a dark myth covering up a practical truth. Rome absorbed its rivals from day one. Which brings us to the big question. Why did Rome need this divine origin story? Why make Romulus the son of Mars instead of just some ambitious warlord? Because empires aren't built on dirt and huts alone. They're built on belief. By claiming descent from gods and heroes, Rome wasn't just another hilltop village. It was destiny made stone and blood. Later, emperors knew this too. When Augustus took power, he restored Romulus's hut on the Palatine, right next to his own palace. The message: I'm not just your ruler. I'm the heir of myth. So here's the real discovery. Archaeology shows us a humble beginning. The myths show us a grand destiny. The truth: Rome was probably both. A scrappy settlement that chose to become legendary. But what do you think? Was Romulus real, or just ancient propaganda? Drop your theories in the comments. Here's something they don't always teach you about Rome's rise. The mighty empire didn't spring up from nothing. Before the legions, before the Senate, there was another civilization holding the reins. And they might have been the real masterminds behind Rome's early greatness. Picture this. It's the 7th century before Christ. Rome is just a rough collection of huts on hills, while to the north the Etruscans are building cities with paved streets, advanced drainage systems, and breathtaking art. They controlled trade routes from Greece to the Alps, spoke a language unlike any other in Italy, and for over a century, they ruled Rome itself. That's right, Rome's last 3 kings, all Etruscan. Tarquinius Priscus, Servius Tullius, Tarquin the Proud. These weren't just foreign rulers, they transformed Rome from a village into a real city. The Cloaca Maxima, that engineering marvel that drained Rome's marshes. Etruscan design, the iconic toga, originally Etruscan. Even the bloody gladiator game started as an Etruscan funeral ritual. And it wasn't just buildings and clothes. The very way Romans interacted with their gods came straight from Etruria. That famous Roman practice of reading omens in bird flights? Etruscan. The elaborate rituals for founding cities? Etruscan. The concept of triumph, the grand parade given to victorious generals? You guessed it, Etruscan. Imagine how awkward this must have been later, when Rome conquered Etruria but kept pretending their culture just sprang up fully formed. It's like taking credit for your neighbor's recipe after burning their house down. Because this changes how we see Rome's origin story. The legend wants us to believe in divine twins and miraculous beginnings. But archaeology and history show us something different. A young city learning from its more sophisticated neighbors, taking what worked and then, well, conquering the teachers. It makes you wonder, without the Etruscans, would Rome have ever become Rome? Or would it have remained just another hill town lost to history? Next time you see the Colosseum or walk through the Roman Forum, remember, some of Rome's greatest achievements started as someone else's ideas. The true genius of Rome wasn't invention, but ruthless, brilliant adaptation. Do you think history gives enough credit to the Etruscans? Or was Rome always destined to overshadow its teachers? Let's debate in the comments. Imagine this: Rome, 509 years before Christ. The last king, Tarquin the Proud, and believe me, he earned that name, has just crossed a line no tyrant should cross. His son Sextus has committed an atrocity so vile, so unforgivable, that the entire city erupts in rebellion. The story goes that Sextus Tarquinius raped Lucretia, a noblewoman known for her virtue. When she revealed the crime before taking her own life, Rome had enough. Led by Lucius Junius Brutus, yes, that Brutus's ancestor, the people rose up and expelled the Tarquins forever. But here's where it gets interesting. The Romans didn't replace one king with another. They did something radical. They invented a new system of government, the Republic. No more kings. Instead, 2 consuls, elected annually. Checks on power, the Senate gaining real authority. It was an experiment unlike anything the ancient world had seen. Now, you might think a brand new republic would play it safe. But Rome? They went on the offensive. Within years, they were fighting for survival against neighboring cities still loyal to the Tarquins, and they won. Then came the Latin Wars, then the Samnites. Each victory didn't just expand Roman territory, it forged a new identity. Here's the brilliant part. Rome didn't just conquer, it absorbed. Defeated enemies became allies, then citizens. By the 3rd century before Christ, Rome controlled all of central Italy. And they did it not as a kingdom, but as a republic, where every soldier fought for his share of the spoils and the glory. So here's a provocative thought. Maybe Rome wasn't truly founded by Romulus at all. Maybe the real Rome was born in that revolution against kings, the Rome of laws, not legends, of legions, not wolves. The system that would eventually conquer the Mediterranean didn't come from mythical twins. It came from citizens refusing to kneel. What do you think? Was the Republic Rome's true founding moment? Or was the empire always in its DNA from Romulus onward? Drop your take in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this deep dive into history's greatest empire. Let me tell you about the greatest PR campaign in ancient history. Rome didn't just conquer the world with swords, it conquered hearts and minds with stories. And no one understood this better than Emperor Augustus, the man who turned Romulus and Remus into the ultimate branding tool. After decades of civil war, Rome was broken. Then along comes Augustus, fresh from defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra, with a brilliant idea. Instead of calling himself king, he'd wrap his power in the old legends. He restored Romulus's hut on the Palatine. He filled the city with statues of the she-wolf. He even claimed descent from Aeneas himself. Here's the genius part. Augustus didn't invent anything new. He simply took Rome's origin story and said, "This was always leading to me." The first emperor wasn't just building monuments. He was building a narrative, that his rule wasn't tyranny, it was destiny. Now, how do you sell this story to millions of people across an empire? You put it in their pockets. Roman coins became miniature billboards, the she-wolf on one side, Augustus's face on the other. Every transaction whispered, "Rome is eternal, and so is your emperor." And it wasn't just coins. Walk through Rome at the height of empire, and you'd see the twins and the wolf everywhere, in forums, on fountains, even carved into drinking cups. This wasn't decoration, this was psychological warfare. A constant reminder that challenging Rome meant challenging the gods themselves. But here's what they didn't put on the coins. That same she-wolf statue? For centuries, it stood in the heart of Rome as criminals were executed beside it. The symbol of nurture became one of terror. The message was clear: Rome could be mother, or she could be judge, jury, and executioner. That's the real lesson of Rome's propaganda machine. Great nations aren't just built on laws and armies, they're built on stories. Stories powerful enough to make citizens line up to die for them. Stories so compelling, we're still repeating them 2,000 years later. Think about that next time you see a national symbol on your money. What stories are we still telling ourselves? Let's debate in the comments. Here's something remarkable. Nearly 3,000 years later, we're still talking about Romulus and Remus, not just as history, but as legend, as myth. Why? Because every civilization from ancient times to today needs its origin story. Think about it. America has Washington crossing the Delaware. England has King Arthur pulling the sword from the stone. These stories all share something in common. They transform messy realities into clean, heroic narratives. Rome's genius was understanding this human craving better than anyone. The messy truth? Probably a bunch of warlords and shepherds fighting over hills. The legend? Divine twins raised by wolves, destined for greatness. Which version would you rather believe in? But here's what makes Rome's story so powerful and so dangerous. Myths unite people. They give us shared identity and purpose. The she-wolf wasn't just a symbol. She was Mother Rome, nurturing her children. Yet every time Mussolini invoked the Roman Empire, every time dictators compared themselves to Caesar, they proved the dark side of these stories. When myth becomes unquestionable truth, it can justify anything. Perhaps Rome's true legacy isn't in its myths, but in showing us how to live with them. The Romans themselves knew the difference between legend and reality. Cicero questioned Romulus's story even as he served the Republic. Augustus restored the wolf statue while building sewers and roads. That's the balance we still struggle with today. Every nation has its founding myths. The test is whether we can honor them while still seeing them clearly. So the next time you see that famous she-wolf statue, remember, she represents both our deepest dreams and our constant challenge to build societies worthy of our best stories while never forgetting the complicated truth beneath them. What legends does your country tell about its origins? How do they shape who you are today? Share your thoughts below. So here we stand at the end of our journey, looking back across 2,700 years. Was Rome truly founded by a wolf-raised warrior? Or was that just the story that helped turn 7 hills into the capital of the world? The beautiful, complicated truth is this: Rome needed both. The myth of Romulus gave its people something to believe in. The hard work of real shepherds, soldiers, and statesmen gave them something to build on. Every great civilization has this duality: America's city upon a hill, China's mandate of heaven. These stories aren't lies. They're promises we make to ourselves about who we want to be. But here's what Rome teaches us that's more valuable than any legend. Greatness comes when we have the courage to see our stories clearly, to honor the myth while building the reality, to plant our feet in the dirt of truth, even as we reach for the stars of our ideals. If this journey through Rome's origins moved you, do me a favor. Share it with someone who loves history's great mysteries, and subscribe to Imperium Chronicles, because next week, we're cracking open another legend that shaped our world. Until then, Vale, as the Romans would say, farewell.